Hi, boys and girls. I'm going to read you the storybook. It is called Cinderella 2, A Dream Come True. Aim to please. You'll love the storybook. We're back, Cinderella said. Through the carriage window, she saw the beautiful white castle glowing in the sunset. Welcome home, said the prince. Cinderella and the prince had just been married, and they were returning from their honeymoon. I still can't believe I'm going to live in a castle, Cinderella said. Are you sure this isn't just a dream? The prince chuckled. You're a princess now. He and his bride, Princess Cinderella, they stepped out of the carriage and headed toward the castle. But before they reached the entrance, the king came rushing out. So there's Cinderella and her husband, the prince, and there's a beautiful white castle, boys and girls. But let's see what's gonna happen next. Off we go, he told the prince. We have important matters to attend to. Now, the prince said, Father, I can't just abandon my princess, not with the royal banquet only 2 days away. She hasn't had time to prepare. Your Majesty, offered Prudence, the head servant, I can take care of the preparations as always. Just how Cinderella what to do, interrupted the king. We have a princess now. It is her duty to plan the banquet. He hurried into the carriage. I'm sorry to rush off, said the prince. Don't worry, Cinderella replied. I'll be fine. Oh, Cinderella has to do a banquet before they return. Well, the king and the prince. But I think Prudence is going to help her with the banquet. Let's see what happens. But the next morning, Cinderella wasn't so sure. When she looked in the mirror, she hardly recognized herself with her fancy hairdo and stiff new gown. Couldn't I just wear one of my own dresses? Cinderella asked. Prudence and the other servants. It simply isn't done, Prudence said huffily. Then they took Cinderella to the kitchen for training. There were so many rules to learn, even what kind of desserts to serve at the banquet. Stew, prunes, said Prudence. Prunes, exclaimed Cinderella. For desserts? The king expects it, Prudence answered. It is a tradition that is never broken. Oh, so now they're in the kitchen to see what's going to be for dessert for the banquet, and Cinderella shows up not like herself. So let's see what happens next. Cinderella's lessons lasted all morning. Every time she tries to suggest one of her own ideas for the banquet, Prudence shook her head and said the same thing. It is simply isn't done. Then she gave Cinderella more rules to follow. That afternoon, the servants tried to help Cinderella. They quizzed her about the rules. Gold or silver, they asked. Fish or fowl. Stand or sit. Left or right. I don't know, cried poor Cinderella. She was just about worn out when she spotted the baker, the flower seller, and some of the other villagers at the castle gates. It's like it's getting more harder for Cinderella, I guess. And Prudence is making it more harder for her to understand the rules for the banquet. My friends, she cried happily, open the gates. No, no, Prudence scolded. You must remember the rules. Commoners are never allowed in the palace. It is simply isn't done. Stunned by Prudence' remarks, Cinderella ran up to her room. When in her room she started to cry, Cinderella was comforted by her mouse friends. She explained that she was having a hard time understanding all the new rules, especially that rule about keeping commoners out of the palace, she said. Suddenly, Cinderella realized that she didn't have to obey anyone's rules about how to act. She was her own person and she could make her own decisions. So this scene, Prudence making it more harder for her. Not the commoners means the villagers cannot come to the palace. So now Cinderella's sad, but let's see what Cinderella has in mind of her own decisions. I'm going to plan this banquet my way, Cinderella cried to the mice. The first step was to let her hair down and put on her own comfortable clothes. Now Cinderella felt like herself again. I know I can do this, she said. I just have to stop trying to be someone else. Next, Cinderella marched outside. Open the gates, she cried out. She walked through the village, passing out banquet invitations to all the commoners. The butcher, the baker, the flower seller, dear friends she had known her whole life. She's inviting everybody from the village, and that's very nice of her. That's very nice of her friends that are always there for her. The mice. Back at the castle, Cinderella headed straight for the kitchen. This party needs help, she said, starting with desserts. What should she serve? There must be something better than stewed prunes. Then she had a great idea. Chocolate pudding, declared Cinderella. Now that sounds good. Cinderella next stop was the ballroom. There was no way she was going to dance some boring old dance, even if it was the king's favorite. Instead, she showed the servants a lively waltz. We never get to dance like this, one of the maids said with a giggle. We never get to dance like this. No, they're dancing like that because Cinderella is teaching them how to dance in a different way. And now she's going to cook pudding for desserts for the banquet. Yes. She's doing it her own way, and that's awesome. Suddenly, Prudence stormed into the ballroom. It simply isn't done, she said with a gasp. It simply isn't done. Cinderella tried to reassure her. I know this is a big change, she said, but I have to try things my way. Well then, said Prudence, I certainly hope you know what you're doing. I hope so too, thought Cinderella. It was almost time for the banquet. Cinderella put on her favorite dress and her favorite necklace, and she fixed her hair just the way she liked it. Shortly, she heard carriages rumbling up to the castle. It is too late to turn back now, she said. So let's see what Cinderella has in mind. Let's see what's going to happen next. She's all excited. Let's see how the banquet's going to go. Cinderella tiptoed downstairs to the ballroom. She was scared to look. What if everyone was having a terrible time? But it was a wonderful party. The orchestra was playing a merry tune, and the royal guests and commoners were dancing together like the best of friends. Cinderella quickly joined in and began dancing with the others. All at once, trumpets began to blow. The king's carriage had arrived. Cinderella had butterflies in her stomach. What would the king say? Would he be angry about all the changes she had made? So look at the ballroom. Everybody's dancing together. Commoners and royal, and I'm just saying everybody is dancing together. They're all having a good time. But let's see what the king is, how the king's going to act, boys and girls. Let's see. The king over here. She held her breath as the king walked in. He stopped and stared. Commoners in the palace? The orchestra playing a waltz? At that moment, a servant ran by with a big silver bowl. Smack! He bumped right into the king. Splat! The bowl landed right on the king's head. What the blazes is going on here? The king bellowed from beneath the bowl. This is all Cinderella's doing, cried Prudence, standing nearby. I tried to teach her, but she refused to listen. The king pointed to his head. And what is this? Your dessert, sir, whispered Cinderella. No prunes, he cried angrily. Then he took a taste. Chocolate, my favorite. The key looks funny. He's angry, but let's see how the way he's gonna act. All the servants and guests were staring at the king nervously. Even the orchestra had stopped playing. Suddenly the king began to laugh. What happened to the music? He called out. Everybody dance! Then he turned to Prudence and Cinderella, who both looked worried. I always said we needed some new traditions around here. Splendid job, splendid. It is the princess who deserves your praise, sir, Prudence told him honestly, and I am honored to be at Her Highness' service. Cinderella smiled at Prudence. I think we're going to be great friends. So the king loves the new changes in the banquet. And all thanks to Cinderella. Just then the prince arrived. He swept Cinderella into his arms and gave her a big hug. Then he looked around at all the changes. Did I miss something? He asked. Surprise! Cried Cinderella. She then explained everything to him. The king escorted Cinderella and the prince over to their thrones. I told my son he had chosen well, he announced, beaming at Cinderella. You're a natural. The king slipped glittering crown onto Cinderella's head. Hooray! Everybody cheered. Another dance, ordered by the king. I guess the king loves it. The dance. He loves the banquet. He loves everything. Celebration. And Cinderella loves her prince. That's very sweet. I'm glad you did things your own way, the prince told Cinderella. She blushed. Someday I'll get this princess thing right. The prince leaned over and gave Princess Cinderella a kiss. I think that day is today. He answered with a smile. And that is the end of the story. Well, sometimes you have to surprise someone you love. Sometimes it doesn't matter if it goes their way or your way. But what matters is how you feel, boys and girls. What's really most important is making that person happy. Just like the way Cinderella did for her prince and the king. She made them happy because she did changes. Sometimes changes could be good things and also bad things too. But with the way Cinderella did it in her way, inviting all her friends, and chocolate pudding she made for desserts, and the way they danced and the orchestra, it was amazing, the story. And the king loves it. The one that was being very mean was Prudence. But Cinderella did everything the Cinderella way. I'll be right back with my buddies.